The 20th century began with blood. Two world wars would tear the world apart. Faith would be questioned. Science would rise. God, many believed, was slowly being pushed out of history. But while Europe prepared for its greatest collapse, in a forgotten mountain village in southern Italy, a child was born whose life would quietly contradict everything the modern world thought it understood. This is not a medieval legend. This is not folklore. This is a documented life, investigated, photographed, examined, doubted, and watched for more than 50 years. This is the story of Padre Pio, and it begins in poverty. On May 25, 1887, in the small hill town of Pietrelcina, in the region of Campania, Maria Giuseppa Fagioni went into labour. Italy itself was barely 17 years old as a unified nation. The south was poor, isolated, and largely ignored. Families worked the land. Children laboured before they learned to read. Disease and hunger were constant companions. That night, something unusual happened. The child was born still enclosed in the amniotic sac, wrapped in a translucent membrane, a rare and striking phenomenon. In earlier centuries, such births were surrounded by superstition. Some believed children born this way were marked for destiny. Others feared suffering. The membrane was broken. The child cried. He lived. Within 24 hours, the newborn was carried to the local church and baptized. His name was Francesco Fagioni, named after Saint Francis of Assisi. Decades later, as an old man he would weep, remembering that moment, not because of the rarity of his birth, but because he believed he had never thanked God enough for being baptized so soon after entering the world. From the beginning, Francesco's life unfolded differently. He grew up working the fields with his father, Grazio tending sheep, learning the harsh rhythms of rural life. But even as a small child, he seemed to inhabit another world as well. By the age of 5, Francesco claimed he could see Jesus. He spoke of the Virgin Mary as if she were familiar. He said his guardian angel played with him. To him, this was normal. He assumed everyone lived this way. One day during Mass, while kneeling in the church, Francesco later said that Jesus appeared to him at the altar and called him forward. The child obeyed. According to his testimony, Christ placed his hands on him and asked for his life. Francisco gave it without hesitation. That moment, at 5 years old, marked his vocation. As he grew, his behavior unsettled other children. While they laughed and joked, Francisco prayed. Before eating, he carefully laid a cloth on his lap and bowed his head in silence. When others cursed or mocked God, he would cover his ears, burst into tears, and flee. His mother worried. Was her son holy or unwell? A priest examined the boy carefully and reassured her. Francesco was not sick. He was called, but this calling carried weight. Even as a child, Francesco practiced penance. He slept on stone. He prayed for hours alone. He wept for sins he believed were not even his own. When he was 9 years old, Francesco witnessed what would shape his understanding of faith forever. During a pilgrimage to a small sanctuary, a desperate woman burst into the church carrying her severely deformed child. She begged for healing. When nothing happened, she screamed in anguish and hurled the child at the feet of the saint's statue. In that instant, witnesses testified that the child stood, healed and whole. The church erupted. People fell to their knees. Francesco was not shocked. To him, this was simply how God worked. As adolescence arrived, however, joy gave way to struggle. Francesco loved his family deeply. The thought of leaving them terrified him. He felt torn between two goods, devotion to God and love for his parents. The physically, he lost to weight, cannot sleep. His body weakened under the pressure of an internal war. When his mother suggested he remain close to home, Francesco responded with heartbreaking clarity. If even those he loved asked him to compromise his calling, then God must come first. At 15, after months of anguish, something changed. In prayer, Francesco experienced a vision of a radiant figure who led him into a vast field. There, he saw angels clothed in white and dark figures twisted by hatred. A monstrous presence emerged between them, overwhelming, terrifying. He was told to fight. He believed he would fail, but he did not. With help, He stood, and when the battle ended, he was promised a crown, not yet, but one day. Days later, clarity came. He understood that his life would be a constant spiritual battle, that suffering would not be incidental. It would be central. On January 6, 1903, Francesco left home to enter the Capuchin order. The silence nearly broke him. Novices were forbidden from speaking. Letters home were restricted. Consolation was stripped away deliberately. The goal was total dependence on God. When his parents visited, he could barely look at them. His father erupted in anger, demanding answers. Only then was the silence lifted, and Francesco collapsed into his arms. Despite the harshness, his inner life intensified. Meditation on the Passion of Christ caused him to weep uncontrollably. His tears soaked the chapel floor. This was not emotion, it was identification. He believed Christ suffered personally for him, and that knowledge crushed him. In 1904, he took his vows and received a new name, Padre Pio. His studies were modest. He was not a great academic. But strange phenomena followed him. He reported demonic attacks, physical assaults, terrifying apparitions, voices in the night. Other friars heard the sounds. Some thought he was ill. Others were unsure what to believe. He also claimed to appear in places he had never been. In one such experience, he described appearing beside a dying man and a woman giving birth hundreds of kilometers away. Years later, that child would come to him, exactly as described. Illness followed him constantly. Doctors diagnosed him with aggressive tuberculosis. Several declared he would die within weeks, yet he lived. Again and again, his health collapsed in monasteries and improved only when sent home. In 1910, believing he was dying, the church ordained him early. Padre Pio, less than a month later, while praying beneath an elm tree near his family home, he experienced searing pain in his hands. Red marks appeared, then vanished, leaving pain behind. He said nothing. For 8 years, he bled invisibly. Then the world entered war. Drafted multiple times, he was repeatedly discharged due to illness. In 1916, he was sent to a remote monastery in San Giovanni Rotondo. He believed it was temporary. It was not. On August 5, 1918, while hearing confessions, Padre Pio experienced what mystics call transfiguration, the piercing of the heart. He believed he would die from it. Weeks later, on September 20, 1918, after Mass, while praying alone before a crucifix, he saw Christ, wounded and bleeding. He was invited to share in that suffering. When the vision ended, blood flowed from his hands, feet, and side. The invisible wounds had become visible. For the next 50 years, Padre Pio would bleed. Doctors would examine him. Skeptics would accuse him. Pilgrims would come by the thousands. The church would investigate. And when he finally died, in 1968, the wounds vanished without scars. But that is not the end of the story. It is only the beginning. Subscribe to the channel to follow more stories like this. Like the video, share it, and leave a comment with your suggestions for future themes or historical figures you would like to see explored.